Hello, everyone. My name is Precious, and this is another section of Know Your Rights and Responsibilities. But this time around, we are focusing on international students. So, one thing I know of every international student is, which I feel like is a very, it can be a strength, but it can also be quite difficult. Is trying to understand everything very fast. So there is visa, there is accommodation, there is settling into the new country, there is attendance and engagement. And a lot of times I keep wondering what's the difference between attendance and engagement because I really don't understand. I really don't get it. And then there is trying to understand the country policy, trying to understand the university policy, trying to understand and adapt to the academic structure of the country. And at the same time, you just have to pass your module. So it's really it can be a lot for international students. And today I'm joined by Erin Mac McVory.
McAvoy.
McAvoy. So sorry, I'm so used to just calling you Erin, 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 Erin. And today was actually the first time I realized that that's your surname. So I didn't know about it. So apologies. So Erin is here from the university students' life, and we are going to break everything, every aspect of this in a very simple term that can be clear for all international students. So we are going to look at what support is available for international students, when to ask for help, and as well as what responsibilities that we as international students need to take very serious. So before we proceed, can you please tell us about yourself, Erin?
So my name's Erin McAvoy. I'm a student advisor here. I've worked here for about 5 years now, and I've been working in international student advice, immigration advice, and previously compliance at the university for that 5 years. Since we've had a restructure, I now do a lot more of inclusion advice as well as money and guidance. So there's quite a few things that we cover, but my specialty is visas and immigration. So there's me and one other advisor, Gareth, and we specialize in visa and immigration. So whenever you have any questions, it doesn't matter how silly it might be, you're not going to get in trouble by asking a question.
Yeah.
So please just remember, if you take anything away, just please ask your questions. In terms of a little bit more about me, myself, you may have noticed I don't have a British accent. I am American, but I've been in the UK for 13, 14 years, quite a long time. So I am sort of like an honorary Brit, perhaps, or as I would say, I'm a bit of a transplant.
Oh.
But everyone has their different word for it. So I do understand what it's like to move to a different country. I've also lived in China and Germany, so I've lived in a couple different places. So I understand some of the pressures that you get when you try to relocate as well.
Oh, that's a good. That's got me quite emotional for him. Okay, so now talking about the journey because you're an international, and then I'm also an international student, so it feels like we're resonating a lot. So talking about the international student journey, yeah. So one thing I'm very sure is that from the point whereby you decide to be like, oh, I want to leave what I know, I want to leave a family environment into a brand new place. I feel like at that point in time, your student journey has started. So from the point of taking the decision, the cars left the offer. You first get an offer, and then you get issued a cars. Then you do your travel plans. No, sorry, you get issued a cars. Then you visa, and then you do your travel plans. Then enroll, settling in, and a lot and a lot. Every stage matters to every student. So, with respect to experience here, what do you think are the common points that students tend to get confused and overwhelmed, especially in the student journey while coming to the UK?
So I think it's such a huge decision to come to study in a different country, and there's so many things that you're thinking about. And I think often a lot of students are really focused on that visa, getting the offer, getting the visa, getting that application in, and then booking their tickets. I think that one of the things that catches a lot of students off guard is that um, it's a little bit too much to think about what happens after that, which I think is very valid. There's a lot to think about, but unfortunately, sometimes we have students who've done all this and then they get here and they realize they haven't fully thought out their accommodation situation. They haven't fully thought out how they're going to travel from their accommodation to university. They haven't, they haven't thought about what they're going to do if they can't find a part-time job right away. All of these other logistical things that aren't as exciting as moving to a new country, but are really, really important in order to make sure that you don't cause yourself unnecessary stress, because you can plan for these things. And I think that's the thing. It's you get that application in, then all you want to do is wait and get that answer.
Yeah.
Take a break then. Start doing some of the forward planning. Make sure you've got your accommodation, your travel expenses, your budgeting, get all that stuff in order. So then you're prepared when you get here to just hit the ball rolling and start focusing on your academics and settling in.
That's quite a good advice to give, because a lot of times we just put in our applications and then we just pause and be like, oh, what next?
Stressing.
Let's just wait. Then
I
the
just need that answer.
it builds. Then the tension keeps building, and then when you get the offer, then it now comes in as a rush. And at the point you're trying to do a lot of, it feels like you're doing a lot of things at the same time, and then you forget about the fact that, oh, I'm going to a new country. I need to settle in. I need accommodation. I need to get a job. I need to get, and so I actually understand that. So also, what do you think are the basic responsibilities that every international student should know when coming into the university, or why in the university?
So we're talking about when you come on a student visa, we're talking about visa responsibilities. So I think this is something that I think a lot of students, when they come, they do have a really good idea of their visa responsibilities, because we're always so worried about that visa, and so we want to make sure we know everything. But sometimes we forget some of the finer details of it. So one thing to remember is you have to keep the university up to date with any changes. So you need to make sure you tell them when you move house. You need to make sure you talk to them if you want to change course. You need to make sure you tell them if you get a new passport. All of these sorts of things, just let the university know, and then we'll tell you if you need to tell the Home Office as well, because sometimes you need to tell the Home Office as well. Like if you need to make sure that you keep your UKVI account up to date with any relevant information. Another thing that's really important is knowing your working conditions. I think most students know the 20-hour-a-week work limit. What a lot of students don't realize is that there's also restrictions on self-employment, business activity, working as an entertainer, all of these sorts of things, which seem like, oh, I'm not going to open a business. But that includes things like babysitting, dog walking, doing a YouTube channel. These things are all included in that sort of thing. So you need to make sure that you understand that and don't find yourself in a situation where you're violating those things. And another thing that you really need to remember is that your visa is here for you to be doing your course. No matter what else you got going on, and obviously a lot of people come with a lot of other stuff going on. You got stresses of travel, you got stresses of the house, stresses of family, pressure, all of this. But your visa is for you to do your course, and your course has to become your priority. That means prioritizing your attendance and your coursework over everything else. And so you need to really be able to make sure that that's your priority in your mind, and that comes before everything else, because that is why your visa is with you to do that course.
So, so when you talk about the fact that your priority is to do the course, family, and every other thing, it's not like they don't matter, but you need to prioritize.
Yeah, it's not that they don't matter, absolutely not. And things happen where you have to travel home. That's understandable. Sometimes you do have to travel to see family in an emergency situation, those sorts of things. And you do have your responsibilities. We're not saying forget your other responsibilities. But when we talk about attendance, this is what we're thinking about. It's costing me a lot of money to travel to my course. Maybe you should move closer, because you have to travel to your course, because you have to attend your course, because that is why you have a visa. You have your plans for after your course, and that's fantastic, and we want you to be able to fulfill all those career goals. But while you're on your course, that has to be your primary focus. It has to be number one. Not to say other things aren't close at number two, but the course has to be number one.
Okay. So apart from visa responsibilities that we as international students, what other responsibilities do we have as international students? Why?
Well, your responsibilities are to make sure that you're meeting the conditions of your visa. So you're not violating any of your working conditions, not breaching, not working too many hours, not claiming public funds. That's a big one. You want to make sure you're not accidentally claiming any public funds. And you have to make sure that you're fully engaging your course. That's a huge one. That's why I say the course has to be the priority, because again, that is why you have the visa, it's to do your course. And again, also keeping the university and the UKVI informed about any changes. So, I mentioned sometimes, like, if you want to change course, for example, unfortunately, a home student might be able to just put that in, get a request, get it approved, change to another course. An international student doesn't have that luxury, because an international student's visa is issued for a specific course. And so we need to approve to say whether or not it still meets the same criteria and is okay on the visa that you have for you to switch that course. And if it is okay, then that needs to be reported to the UKVI by the university. So there's a lot of other things to consider sometimes. Same things like taking a break in study. A home student, for example, if they get pregnant, most will take a break and study, and they'll just take a break and then come back when they're ready after the baby's a little bit older. Unfortunately, international students, you can take a break and study, but in most cases, it will mean leaving the country, going home, applying for another visa to come back. So it's just these sorts of things that unfortunately take a little bit more forethought for an international student, and sometimes the consequences are a little bit higher when things happen, even things that are outside of your control.
This is quite enlightening, especially the part that you have to update the university even when you change your passport.
Yep. When you change your passport, because we have a responsibility as a student sponsor to have right to study information for all of our students. So that includes home students. So we need to have right to study. Even of British citizens, so that's not just international students. That's absolutely everybody. And for most who are not a British citizen, that's going to be a passport and a visa. So that's what we're usually going to have. So that actually applies to everyone. So we don't necessarily need the up-to-date passport for someone who we know is a British citizen, but we want to make sure we have the up-to-date details of everything. And if you're on a student visa, we should have your up-to-date passport. You also need to make sure you update the Home Office as well, because you've got that UKVI account. You can go on and you can do it. And you can just do that. And if you don't do that, then your e-visa might have trouble when you're trying to pass the border if you're traveling. So really, it's just good to keep everything up to date.
Yeah, that's quite good. That's good to know. Then we're talking about so today is more about international student support. So what are the support, like what's that support that is available to international students? But before we go in there, what do we understand by support? Because there is this thought, like when I was coming into the country, I didn't even know there was anything called support for international students. So I just felt like, oh, I'm just coming here to study and then just go. And most times, students feel like, oh, probably there is no support, and probably lots of times when they get to realize that there is a support, it's when they're in a very, very dire situation. And at that point in time, they just keep running around with respect to that. So, what's that support that is available for international students?
So there's a lot of support available, and it comes from a lot of different areas and a lot of different teams. So one of the things that I think is really important is for all students to know, but especially international students that might come from a background where they're not necessarily as comfortable asking for help, is that you can always ask for help, okay? And we'll always give help if we can. So even if you don't know who to ask, it's better to ask somebody, and they can usually figure out who you need to go to. So for example, if you need academic support, you can always speak to your academic mentors or your course leaders, or any of your individual module tutors if it has to do with those modules. There's also the academic skills team run through the library who can give you one-on-one support with that. If you're struggling with your English, with your academic writing. We have an English support team as well that you can access, free classes that you can go to, so you can do group classes, or you can also ask for one-to-one support from them as well. So you don't have to be embarrassed about that if that's something that you're struggling with. I mean, I wouldn't want to do a degree in another language, so absolutely no shame if you want a little bit of extra help there. So that's in terms of the academic side. In terms of the advice side and understanding your visa responsibilities, your conditions, life in the UK, you can come and speak to the student life team. So we have our specialists, Gareth and I, who can help with visa and immigration advice. We can also help if you have any questions, no matter how silly, if you're struggling trying to figure out how to settle in, how to find something to do, if you're trying to understand how your accommodation works. There's a students' union who can also help with a lot of those practical things, because I know you do a lot with accommodation and those sorts of things as well. If you're struggling to understand the university processes, which I would not blame you if you are, you can also come to our team and we can help. Or if you have a disability or suspect you might have a disability, you can come to us as well. Just because you're international doesn't mean you can't access the same support as other students. It only means that you can't always get all the same funding as other students. Another one that's huge that we always want to remind students about is the well-being team, the mental health and well-being team. They are available for anyone who might be struggling with their mental health, and you don't have to be embarrassed or ashamed to request an appointment. You request an appointment, they'll ring you back. You can book one in, and you can have a conversation. If you just want to meet once, that's absolutely fine. And also, I think it's worth noting that while it's not provided through the university, if you're here on a student visa, you probably paid the immigration health surcharge.
Yeah, you
So,
did.
yeah, so you've paid a lot of money to access the NHS. Use it. I know it's not always the most convenient. I know sometimes you have to wait for appointments and you might have to ring and fill in forms and talk to receptionists and all of this. But you have paid for it. Access it. If you're struggling, let them know. They can offer you mental health support as well. And if you're not sure if you're well in yourself and in your body, go to the doctor, tell them what's going on, and ask them for tests if you need to. Okay, don't be afraid to ask for what you're entitled to. Okay, and you have paid for that NHS. Use it. Just try and get through how annoying it can be. It is getting better though. Get the app on your phone. I know that my GP now, you can usually fill in a form rather than ringing if you want to talk to somebody. So just make sure you've got registered with a GP so you can do that, and so you can get that support, because that is a huge amount of support that I think often students forget that they can use that. And they'll be struggling with their health, be really, really tired, and they haven't thought, maybe the doctor actually can find a solution to some of this.
Sometimes I think that probably not that we as international students can use it. Like I said, understanding the whole system can be very, very
It can be really tricky.
Yeah, it's very tricky. And then lots of times you have to wait. I think that waiting is
Yes.
clearly.
It's really different. It's really, really different here than it is in a lot. And I know I really struggled when I got here, thinking I can't just call up and
You just
yeah.
you can just rock into
Yeah,
the
sometimes
hospital.
some countries you can just walk in.
into the hospital.
I know that I know that some places I've lived, you just literally go and you just say you want that, or you just say I want to go to see this kind of doctor, and you just do that. Here, everything goes through your GP.
Yeah.
But also one thing that students should remember is we do have the 111 facility in the UK. You can do that online, or you can ring. And that's really, really good if you're not quite sure if you need to see a doctor, or you're not quite sure when you need to see a doctor, if it's something that you need to do right now, or if it can wait till tomorrow, or if you're just like, oh, is this an A&E situation? Is this a walk-in situation? Maybe a pharmacist can help you. If you do 111, they'll ask you about your symptoms and what you're experiencing, and they'll tell you where to go. And so then you don't have to do that thinking, and they'll even tell you the nearest one to go to based on where you're located. So that can take some of the stress out of calling the GP and then having them just tell you, no, sorry, not us. Because there's nothing worse than that.
That's great. You also talked about we could like with how solve with the university transitioning into solve, how is it possible for an international student to kind of reach out to you and Guy? Because you
Yeah.
said if you want, you could talk to you and Guy, right?
Yeah.
Do you have to? Is there a place you could just rock up to and have a conversation, or do we have to log it on and solve and?
Yes. So we are offering drop-ins on Thursday afternoons, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Please keep your eyes out because we'll always let you know if that changes. We'll always let you know if we can't do one week or if we have to change a time or something like that. Obviously, this is the time we're offering right now as of filming in May 2026. There's always a possibility something will change in September, but this is the plan. Is the plan to do this, and we found this that offering these regular drop-ins for a couple hours a week do work. But you can also put in a request on Solve. So just so you know, when you put in a request on Solve, it's triaged by the student life team, and they'll look at your query and they'll assign it to the specialist that's most relevant. So if you put in something and you say that it's international advice, but you're actually asking for support with your dyslexia, that's going to be reassigned to someone who can help you best with your dyslexia. If you put in a question and it's really going to be a question for the visa compliance team, it will be reassigned to them. So in a way, you don't really need to know who you're going to, but you can always put it in and it will be reassigned. And if you do come through to us, we'll always, if we can answer your question easily over the Solve ticket, we'll do that. But you can always request an appointment as well because we have quite good availability for appointments, and we're always happy to meet with students through either online, in person, or over the phone, whatever works best for you.
That's very. Thank you so much for that. For that. Should I call it an update for that information? That really helps. Before we wrap up for this section, is there any? What are your top 5 pointers that you think that every international student should have at the back of their mind?
Okay. So the top 5 things that you need to consider when you come. So number 1, this is something you need to sort out before you get here, ideally, or at least have a very good plan of what you're going to do if it's not sorted out when you get here. Accommodation. Where you're going to live, what kind of situation it's going to be. Whether you're going to have bedding, whether you're going to have cooking supplies, whether those will be supplied, whether or not you need to buy those, where it's going to be, how far it's going to be from the university. I know that a lot of students like to live in Birmingham or Manchester, which is absolutely fine. That's within an hour commute, so that meets the criteria. But it does mean taking trains every day, and that is expensive, and you need to get to the train station before you do that. So you need to make sure you've thought this out. How much time is this going to take? Because you are going to be expected to be on campus every day. You need to make sure you've planned that out and that you have the budget for that. For some students, they're living with family, so it works out. It makes sense financially, but you need to make sure it makes sense time-wise so that you can really engage with your course as well. And also, again, those last-minute expenses. If you're not able to find someplace right away, you need to be prepared to pay for a hotel or something like that. Yeah, until you get it. And that brings me to number 2, which is budget. Money. You've done all that work getting all of those maintenance costs together so you can prove them when you've done that visa application. You've got it all there secure in a bank account. You have to make sure that you think about what kind of bank you're going to open a bank account with when you get here.
That's actually.
Yeah, look at ones that have international student accounts that have good rates for transferring money overseas so that you don't get hit with hidden costs. It's going to be more beneficial generally if you have the money in your UK account. You're going to be able to pay for things quicker because sometimes overseas bank transfers can take a really long time. So you want to make sure you're looking in and doing your research about what bank's going to be the best for you and what their offers are. And
so before you go to the third one, so the aspect of the bank, is it something you need to do while in the UK or before you get
You won't be able to open it till you're here, unfortunately. So keep that in mind as well. If you planned on arriving in the UK really early, you might be stuck without a bank account for a little bit because you won't be able to do it until you enroll. And you can only enroll maybe a few weeks before your course starts. So you do have to, while coming early and being prepared is really great, you might find yourself a bit stuck before you have any of the papers you need to do certain things, because some landlords won't let you get your keys till you enroll. Most banks won't let you open an account until you enroll. So you need to make sure you're not setting yourself up to just be spending money. And all of that while you're waiting, that you have a plan for what you're going to do during that time. And so while we're talking about banks, budgeting is a huge thing. You need to make sure you've done your research about how much things are going to cost. Things that you don't necessarily think about, that you have to, if you're not staying in student accommodation, you're going to have to pay for the electricity, the gas, the heating, the water. You're going to have all these other utility payments. You're probably going to have to make sure you get your exemption for your council tax if you're living with other students. There's a lot of other expenses that you might not have thought about. So make sure you overestimate what you need and have a backup for when things don't go. Because another thing, unfortunately, most students are not able to find a job right away. So
that's the truth.
if you are relying on your budget for when you get a job working 20 hours a week, you're going to want to cut that out because realistically it's going to take a while, probably at least a few months for most students to get a job. And you might not be able to get 20 hours a week. You might only be able to get 10 hours a week.
That's really one reality that I don't think a lot of international students kind of factor in.
Yeah.
Because we feel like, it's 20 hours. The UKVS states that I can work for 20 hours. And then you get to a place and sometimes it's not even up to 20 hours. So it's not even get up to 10 hours.
Yeah, unfortunately student jobs can be really competitive because we have a lot of students who want to work part-time and have limited schedules, and not every employer can always accommodate that. So you need to be prepared for the fact that you probably won't be able to find 20 hours a week working right away, that it might take some time, you might not be able to work the full 20 hours. And that you're going to have to dedicate some time to really try and do that. I didn't mention support from the careers team before. So I know we're on our top 5, but while we're talking about that, please remember there is a careers team that can help you. What employers in the UK look for might be different from what they look for back home.
Oh my God, don't tell me that.
They're going to expect a different layout of CVs. They're going to expect some different information. They might expect a different presentation during interview skills. They might have different ideas about punctuality, timeliness, communication, how you address people, all these sort of soft skills, we call them. So use the careers team. They will do mock interviews with you. They will help you work on your CV. They will help you look at opportunities. Use them because you can use them even after you finish. When you're an alumni, you can still come back and use them. Sorry, alumna. But you can still use them after you graduate. So please do, because they will help you get that edge and help you understand. The reality is most people looking for a job will not get the first job. They will not get the second job. You won't get the 10th job. You won't get the 50th job. It's terrible applying for jobs. Anybody who has a job will tell you this. It takes a long time. You can't let yourself get beat down, but there are things you can do to try and improve those skills and learn from the mistakes that you make, and the careers team can help with that. Going back to our top 5, number 3, visa responsibilities. I think most students come here with a pretty good understanding.
The crown and the king of it.
Yeah, but it is so important, because the last thing you want is to get in trouble. The last thing you want is to get in trouble, make a silly mistake, work too many hours, not inform somebody of something, or not leave before your visa expires and end up overstaying and then have repercussions in the future for future visa applications. So you want to make sure that you really understand your responsibilities. And if you don't, just come and ask us. Put in a solve ticket, come to a drop-in, and we'll be able to help you understand that. If there's something more complicated, there's always independent advice that you can seek as well through Citizens Advice or one of the listed resources online where you can seek out qualified immigration advisors. I will say, when it comes to your visa responsibilities and getting visa advice, don't just go to your friends. Don't just go to so-and-so who did this, who did this, who did this, who advised so-and-so on this and this. So anyone who's giving immigration advice
Has to be.
without a qualification
Has to be
or
qualified.
or without a ministerial exemption like we have at the university, they should not be giving that advice. That is not legal. You want to make sure that you have somebody who has some oversight in what they're saying to make sure they really are giving you advice that is correct and accurate at the time they give you advice.
So it's possible that, because the advice can be case by case basis.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the person you're talking to is giving you from
Yeah.
his advice from his own case. And
Yes.
yours is
Just
kind of
because I
different.
tell you something about your visa extension just doesn't mean that's the same as this other person's visa extension in 2 years who is extending for a completely different reason. It's not like for like. We need to look at every detail. So you want to make sure that you're not just taking advice from someone who's done it before, because they might not know why it went that way before. They might not know all the details and background things that determine that.
That happens all the time. Okay.
So that's really important. So another one, this one's a little bit less mean. Learn about the weather and the climate and the culture. Learn about the place you're going to come. It's difficult. You're never going to fully understand some place till you're here. That's just a given. But do your research. Go say, well, how do I address somebody who I meet on the street? How might somebody talk to me? What if I want to go to a pub? What if I want to go to a restaurant? Do I need to book? Am I expected to be on time for appointments? What does on time mean? Does that mean 5 minutes early? Does that mean bang on the clock? Does that mean 10 minutes late? These things differ from country to country, and we always take these things for granted. But also the weather, oh my goodness. So many of our students come from Asia and Africa and are really struggling when they get here, especially if they come for a January intake.
I struggled. I'm still struggling.
Yeah. You don't need to necessarily have your winter coat before you arrive, but know that you're going to have to buy one when you're here, and bring all your layers if you come from a warmer country, because it's not always cold here, but it is probably going to be cold. Even if you're coming from Europe, it's probably going to be colder in the summer than you're used to. Yeah. The winters don't get really, really cold, so if you're coming from Canada or northern United States, that's great. Yeah, Russia, Northern Europe, that's fine. But it doesn't get overly hot in the summer, and it does get cold, and it does rain a lot, and it is gray a lot. So make sure you're prepared for that, and also make sure you prepare your mental health for that as well, because it has a big impact when you're used to seeing the sun all the time to come someplace where you can't see the sun all the time. Make sure you do still try to get outside, though, because you just need to adjust your expectations about what you'll be seeing. Beautiful green rolling hills are gorgeous even when it's cloudy. And the last one that I really want to stress is that it's really important that you know where to go for help, because you can't possibly remember everything you need to remember. It's too much. It's too much to expect. No one would expect that. But just remember that you can ask for help. You can go to your academic mentors. You can put a request in through Solve. You can talk to your GP. You can talk to the well-being team. You can come to the Students' Union and talk to Precious, who will then say, Erin, come help me. You can do it. So just remember to make sure you know where to go. If in doubt, use Solve. Yeah. Solve can get you to anybody. Okay, so if in doubt, use Solve, so that you can get help when you need help, hopefully before it becomes a more serious situation. If in doubt, ask for help. Better to know and not need it than to wait too late and not be able to fix it.
That was a good closing. That was a great closing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Also, just let every international student know that all the support is here for you. You've paid for it.
You paid for it.
You paid for it.
Paid for it.
So make use of all the support that is available to you. Like what Erin has echoed. If you don't know who to go to, if you don't know where to go to, you can ask Solve. You can ask your academic mentors or your academics or lecturers. So it's called academics here. Call it lecturers. Call lecturers in my country. Your academics. You could always come to the union website, book an appointment, or you could just walk in. We have at the front desk at the student union, whereby and they would triage you or some post you to the necessary the right places. So please and please and please don't just keep it to yourself. Just ask for help, and we are here to support you. It's your right, and it's also your responsibility to know that we are here to support you. Thank you so much, and thank you very much, Erin.
Thank you for having me.